name and where you live.
My name is Ron. I'm in the Stone Mountain area. I live in the Stone Mountain area.
All right. And do you use the paratransit?
Yes, I do.
And what reasons do you use it for?
For bad weather, generally, I usually fixed route whenever I can. But weather makes that impossible sometimes to get back and forth to doctor appointment or to work or whatever. So I'll use Martyr Mobility.
That was the other question, would be like, what you usually use the paratransit for, like doctor's visits or whatever?
Doctor's visits mostly, yeah.
How would you rate the Martyr Mobility service?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that question. Martyr Mobility, I've used it for about 3 years, and I've probably made an adjustment in my own mind to call them so that I will get there at least a half an hour before I'm supposed to be there. All right, which works out pretty well sometimes, but sometimes I'll still get there late occasionally, and the worst part of it is in bad weather if I get there too early. So now, I'm out in the weather with nowhere to go. If I could count on an exact time when Martyr would get there, then I wouldn't have to make those kinds of accommodations.
So according to your usage, scheduling is a big factor.
Scheduling, yes, exactly.
Right. Well, how about the drivers? How will they treat you?
The drivers, I say about 90% of the time, they're really good people. I've listened, we get into conversations, we talk occasionally, and I find that the newer drivers are probably easier to get along with than some of the older drivers, simply because there seems to be a big disconnect between the people who are actually out there doing the driving and the management. I mean, they expect, from what I've seen, they expect these guys to do miracles, and that traffic is really rough here in Atlanta. Okay, I used to drive myself, and I hated it all the time, and I can imagine how it is for the drivers when they have to deal with the public and the people out there on the road. So, I understand that they have, they have problems with the traffic, and they have problems with the customers. But I don't think the management fully understands that. Perhaps they need to do a few more ride-arounds. I've seen a few of them do that, but not nearly enough to get a full appreciation of what the drivers are going through.
What kind of confidence do you have that if Martyr contracts out the work to a private company whose main goal is profit, to make money, as opposed to Martyr, which is basically a service, how do you feel that might affect service if their only concern is a profit margin?
Well, I think there might be a good side to that. I think there might be a good side to that if their profit or their bottom line was tied to their performance. All right, if they get away with the same type of performance that we've become accustomed to, I guess, here in Atlanta, they may think that anything they can do is okay. It really has to be a tight contract for this thing to work. As far as privatization, I think is a good thing in some cases. Yes.
The concern that some people have is that under Martyr, just to give you an example, they might have 3 or 4 stops that they want their drivers to make in an hour. Under the private company, they might want to make 5 or 6 stops in an hour, trying to pack as much as they can into an hour, not taking into consideration, traffic and that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that that's probably the fear, but in actual fact, I don't think that's going to work out, because I don't think you can make 5 or 6 stops in an hour with considering the traffic and the time it takes for somebody to get on and off. Again, I'd say, let's tie that particular area of their performance to their bottom line. If you can do it and safely, then sure, you can make a little more money. If you can't, then we're going to take it away from you. Let's hold their feet to the fire, see what they can do.
My name is James Turner. I reside in Decatur, Georgia.
Okay. Do you use the mobility?
Yes, I do.
Where do you use it for?
I use it to get to and from work, or to even go to the grocery store, doctor, what have you.
Okay. How would you rate its ability to pick you up on time, either at your house or when you're done shopping or whatever, or at work? How's the schedule to you?
Normally the schedule is okay, but sometimes it's a little late, and sometimes it's on time. So I don't really have any issues, but I've had to call in a couple times and let them know, and so I don't really have that many issues with them, not that much.
They're proposing to contract out the service to a private company. So I'm going to ask you two questions. One, did anybody ask you if it was okay with you that they turn it from a public service to a private service?
No, I wasn't asked, because they should have looked at the person's perspective. I myself, a person in a wheelchair, individuals with disabilities that have to use this service, whether to go to the doctor or go to dialysis, and they need to be there on time. If you have to go to work and be to work on time, I need to be to work on time. And privatizing this, I think it's going to go from bad to worse. It's not going to benefit. It's not going to benefit.
Right. That's part of my second question. If they privatize it, instead of it being a service, it's now a private company and they need to make money. It's profitable eventually.
So all they're doing is lining their pockets. They're not looking at the person that they're picking up that needs to go to that important doctor's appointment. They're only looking at the money issue. They're not looking at the person.
What do you think? Anybody other questions? Stanley? I think that hit it, right? Yeah. Excellent.
My name is Margot Waters. I live in the Atlanta area. You want my address?
No, that's good. And do you use the mobility service?
Yes, I use the mobility service maybe 3 to 4 times a month.
What do you use it for?
Doctor's appointments.
Have you had any trouble getting to the doctor on time?
Yes, it hasn't been like the last couple of weeks, but a few months ago, I always schedule my doctor's appointments early a.m. since I come to work. So I try to be at my doctor's office by 8 o'clock. Mobility picked me up about 6:45. That was the scheduled pickup time. However, they were out of the window, and once they picked me up, they still had to do a drop-off and a pickup before I got to my doctor's appointment. And so I knew I was running a little late, even though I scheduled early enough to give a little flexibility in there. Once I got to my doctor's appointment, they had told me over the phone, come on, we'll see you. But if I had when I called MARTA and was telling them about me arriving late for my appointment, they actually told me that I could get another appointment, or, they could. I was concerned about if I stayed for the appointment, then my return trip, it was going to throw that off. And Marta told me that they don't wait longer than the 5-minute window. So luckily it turned out good for me, and I didn't change anything. I just left it the same because I knew if I had a change, it would have only made it worse.
Right.
But one time before that, I waited on Marta like 3 hours due to some kind of scheduling. I don't know how they book these trips, but it seems like sometimes it's kind of crazy. They may have 3 buses coming through the same location, and oftentimes with a lot of the people that I know that use that service, it could have been done better because quite a few people live in the same neighborhood. So it's a little discouraging using mobility at times, for those of us who do and can get around differently. So.
Okay. All right, I'm going to ask you another question, but I just want to raise this up. So my second question will be, get to it. How do you find the drivers? I mean, are they courteous? Do they treat you good
Yeah,
for the most part?
well, most of the drivers that I've rode with, I've never really could say that I had a driver that was, feeling some kind of way. I mean, I know originally when I started, I could see the improvements that had been made from when I first started up to now, where the drivers no longer listen to their radios or turn the radio or headphones on and things like that. I think most of the drivers I rode with were very nice, So, and when we come over here, the drivers who's drop passengers off here, many times I've seen them escort persons with visual impairments to the door and things like that. So, overall, I think most of the current operators are pretty nice. Now, on the fixed route, that could be another story.
Do you use the fixed route too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You have any trouble with that, with the wheelchair?
Only sometimes, the attitudes can be off. And the biggest thing I think the fixed route needs to do is, why they don't let wheelchair users on the bus first? The bus will get packed, and I got to go on the bus. And these, when they run over toes, they make bad friends. So, I can't try to watch where I'm going, and, So now I use the fixed route daily, because with mobility, I can't call in late to come to work.
Right.
So I use, and plus since our office has moved, it takes me an hour and 40 minutes to get to work. 45 of it is on the bus, on the fixed route. But the bus drivers at the Avondale station, a lot of passengers board that 125 in the mornings. And I'm always the last one to get on the bus. And I can't understand it because even if it's a new bus and they got passengers sitting on both sides, it's still hard for me to maneuver, especially when I can almost feel people's hearts beating and, and going through all of that. So I pumped up my skills I back on the bus now. And that way I don't have to turn around and go through all of that. So,
What type of buses, I'm from New York, we have these new buses where you get on the front, it's a flap, and you just ride on. But sometimes they have a rear door and they have like a lift.
oh really?
What?
Theirs only have one,
What do you do?
the
Yeah,
fold out.
The front door?
Mhm.
Yeah, those are the easiest. Because there's less likelihood that they're gonna fail, because it's just a flap.
Yeah.
And then you can just ride.
Well, I know, that works electrically, but I also know it'll work manually
Right,
too.
exactly.
And with us having that knowledge and knowing that, it's been a time when the driver has said the ramp is broke,
Yeah.
rather than, and
You know
I'm
they could be
pretty
done manually, so.
right. But this happened, and the driver was a female, so I looked at it as, I'm not gonna say what I was thinking,
Right.
but she just didn't want to mess her nails up or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
right.
that,
And then usually when they're running late and all that.
Yeah.
You're gonna knock their schedule off.
Well, I mean, hey, it takes a little bit longer for us to get on the bus,
Right.
but at the same time, the schedule get knocked off by the train delay, or anything could happen. So,
Getting back to the paratransit, they're thinking about, well, they're not thinking about it, they're really trying to do it. They're gonna try to privatize the service. It's gonna change it from being a service to a for-profit business, okay? How do you think that, first of all, how do you feel about them doing this without asking the community that uses the service what they think? And how do you think that might affect the service, the ability to pick you up on a timely manner?
well, it's definitely going to be worse than it already is, because of the switchover and the changeover and things like that. For as the people who are making the decisions, we in the disability community really feel taken advantage of in some cases, a lot of times, or especially here in this environment. We have this saying like nothing about us without us, because how can you say what's needed and you don't even use this service? So until things are always that way, until those that's making that decision finally get the picture. And it only happens when now you need that service for someone that you know, and now you understand and get the picture. So, I think that we should have been able to attend those meetings. More meetings should have been held before they made these decisions, because it's going to affect a lot of people, and the ones that's getting affected are the ones that use the service, not the ones that make those decisions. So I'm a community person. I don't mind going to meetings, but a lot of times you don't find out about them in a timely manner. They're held in the evening. A lot of people who use that service, don't want to come out in the evening like that, or, after dark, or, those that live in that community that could have walked to there can't get there because of other issues with the city and the sidewalks and things. So it's a whole big issue about the way planning is done a lot of times. So.
My name is Suki Glick, and I live in Clarkston.
Okay. Do you use the paratransit?
I do.
Tell us why you use it. Where do you go?
Typically, I go to locations that I haven't been before, like a doctor's appointment, or potentially a consumer's home for work, or just anywhere in the community that I've never been to, but just not sure if it's accessible with a sidewalk or whatnot.
How many times a week would you say you use it?
It used to be at least 2 times a week.
Do you ever have trouble with the scheduling or any other difficulties with the service?
Scheduling is pretty difficult. From my perspective, it just doesn't seem to make sense when I had my pickup time and saw a route that I was going to throughout my journey of getting to my final destination. Just because, for example, my appointment would be like 9 o'clock, and I'd have to get up and be ready by 7, when I really could have been picked up about 8, maybe 8:15, and then I'd get there at 8:15 or 8:30, but the location doesn't open until about 9. So that doesn't, work out very well.
Yeah, that's not too good. They're thinking of contracting out the service, so it would go from a public service to a private. And as a private service, the private operator would be considering his profit margin as his number one priority. How do you think that might affect your ride and the service?
Well, I'm afraid that the service will become worse because there won't be as much accountability. The not accuracy, but the rate of on-time service or availability, I feel like it's going to drop, or any like awareness of the person going to their location and keeping them in mind. I feel like that type of hospitality is going to drop as well.
And did anybody contact you and ask your opinion about whether or not they should privatize?
No, I only knew about it because of where I work, and knew that it was a hot issue for the community. But being that it should have been a hot issue and that our community should have been aware, but I guess they only found out from us, really, or maybe a few heard from the actual source, but unfortunately not
Do
enough.
you think that they should
Definitely.
consult with you?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because
I'm a user, I'm a consumer of the service.
And you know exactly.
I know, I would know how this would affect me and my community, and maybe I would have some input on making it better before changing the whole situation.
And your experience with the paratransit, the mobility in Atlanta, how has your experience been with the drivers?
The drivers, I think the folks that I had worked with, they were great. They felt pulled a little bit between, I guess their boss, with scheduling, and then pleasing the consumer, the passengers, because, they're told to go one way, but, the passengers also have their place, and they're feeling not discouraged. I guess discouraged to get out in the community because it's becoming so inconvenient or difficult to navigate. And, of course, nobody wants that for any party, to make their boss unhappy or their consumer. So, yeah,
Do you routinely get the same drivers?
no.
No,
No.
so your schedule is such that you're always seeing a new driver?
Definitely. I think I've seen the same, I had driven with the same driver for like once or twice, and I've been living here for about 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That sounds pretty good.
Pretty-
All right, can you give us your name and where you live?
My name is Kim Mitch, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia.
All right. Do you use the mobility service?
You mean the paratransit service? I use the paratransit service, yes.
Okay. And what do you use the service for?
The paratransit service, I use it for a number of things. I use it for to go to work, see friends, go to school, most importantly, go to work. Use it to go to health services. Use it pretty much for everything that someone would use a vehicle or other public transportation for.
How has your experience been with the MARTA service?
With the MARTA, Metro Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority.
Right.
So with MARTA as overall, I think public transportation is needed. As far as accessibility, on the services. I think it's lacking a great deal.
Have you had any bad experiences? I would assume maybe
Number.
scheduling or
So when you say MARTA, are you talking about the fixed route or the paratransit or both?
the paratransit.
The paratransit, okay. So with the paratransit service, it's the norm to have some kind of issue with scheduling or on-time performance. It's not it's gotten to a point in Metro Atlanta where it's not unusual to say that I'm going to make sure that I schedule my trip an extra half an hour to an hour earlier just to hope that you'll be there on time.
They are in the process of turning the service over to a private, for-profit company. We also heard, I heard that they're doing this without any input from the passengers. What is your feeling on that?
Well, kind of. That's definitely true. I think the overall input from the community is not there. To say they have no input from the thing is maybe kind of the way you say it. So my experience is that certain people have been picked to give a particular viewpoint. Also, using agencies that may serve people with disabilities or providers that may benefit from people with disabilities and using them as the experts. But as you may agree, is that nobody knows myself, as I said, my name is Ken Mitchell. Nobody knows Ken Mitchell better than Ken Mitchell. Nobody can say how to get around Metro Atlanta as a person who's blind or visually impaired than a person who's blind or visually impaired. No one can say that which way to use a power chair or something like that in Metro Atlanta than somebody who uses a power chair that lives in Metro Atlanta. So when you have other people who are supposed to be quote-unquote experts, like for instance a provider of some sort, they are going to give information from their particular point of view, and it cannot be as expert as somebody who actually uses those services, uses those devices. So MARTA, to come back to your question, MARTA uses those people as the experts instead of the people from the community that actually uses or needs or benefits from accessible transportation.
That's about it, right?
So,
Ken,
yes.
I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but just in terms of a vision for how it could be, what improvements could be made if the passengers were involved.
Oh God, that would go all day. real short.
Give me the short version.
Short version. So here's a couple of things that might improve. First of all, I would think that you actually have to have a mission statement where you're actually trying to improve the accessibility of the system, or you're trying to improve the reliability of the system. If that is your true vision, then the people who have the most invested in the program must be the people that be part of the solution of that particular program, if that's your goal. So one of the things that I would do if I was in charge of the paratransit system is that, okay, what are the issues that are involved? Is it on-time performance? Is it route changes or whatever? The people who actually are using those route changes, the accessibility stuff, would be the ones that I would first go to have it improve. For instance, MARTA says they have a difficulty with on-time performance. Okay, one of the things that's a real simple solution is that if you schedule an 8 o'clock pickup time for transportation, then that must be your time to pick them up. If you have an 8 o'clock pickup time and you schedule it for 8:29, the chances are greater that you're going to be late. The chances are we're already late by 29 minutes, but the chances are that your on-time performance is going to be weak. So one of the things that our paratransit service tends to do is simply that. They will more often say, great, we'll pick you up at 8 o'clock with no intention of picking you up at 8 o'clock. the intention is that we're going to fit that in later on. We're going to make it work so that we're inside the 30-minute window. But again, the 30-minute window is simply there to pick up some things that may happen along the route, flat tire, traffic, or whatever. That's what the purpose of the window is for. It is not to reschedule your time. So if you schedule an 8 o'clock pickup, some things must happen. One, you must actually intend to pick them up at 8 o'clock. Two, you must have the vehicle scheduled for 8 o'clock. Three, you must have the personnel scheduled for 8 o'clock. If all three of those things are something that you don't intend to do from the start, the chances are your on-time performance is going to be a lot later. And that's just one of the 9,000 things that I would do if I was to give input to the service.
Okay. My name is Betty Hassan Amin. I live in Clarkson, Georgia, just right outside of the mainland of the city of Atlanta metro area. I'm 67 years old, and I've been using MARTA for about 20 plus years. So I really have a history with MARTA. When I moved to Atlanta, I first of all had my own van. And then my own van that was hand controlled and lift equipped was in disrepair, and it was far too expensive for me to get it repaired because I'm on a fixed income. So I applied for MARTA, and I was so thankful to be able to have a way to get around Atlanta because the city that I moved from had no transportation that was accessible, and that is Baltimore, Maryland. To be a big metro area, did not have accessible transportation for people with disabilities. So it was really quite a tremendous hardship for me to be able to get around. After I moved from Baltimore, I moved to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and there was a small transportation system, accessible system. As a matter of fact, I took part in an effort through Winston-Salem to have the big buses, the mass transportation system, made accessible. But I was not able to benefit from that particular transportation there because I moved to Atlanta. And when I came to Atlanta again, I was just so grateful when I found out that there was an accessible service specifically for people with disabilities. The cost for riding was minimum and affordable, and I was amazed at the distances that the transportation would carry people with disabilities, throughout the Atlanta metro area. I was very grateful too because my children could ride. I was a single parent with 2 sons, and I was very happy that the service could also include my children as well, and we could travel as a family. And I was just very grateful for that. And the service hours were very excellent. They didn't stop at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. I could go beyond that and attend activities and events and affairs that were in the evening. So that really broadened my life for me. And I was very thankful that I could attend my religious services, which helped sustains my life. So I was happy to see that I had an active life. I worked as a school teacher when I first came here in a faith community, and the service was available for me to get back and forth to the school that I taught in. I was just absolutely thankful that I didn't have to live a restricted life, just being housebound. I remember when I first became paralyzed and as a wheelchair user in Durham, North Carolina, no such thing as a transportation system for people with a disability. And my only view of outside was a ride once per month to my follow-up clinic visits at Duke University Hospital. And my only view was a ride through a small window in an ambulance once per month. So you can see how this transportation system here in Atlanta, mobility, has opened up a whole new world for me that was not there for me before, that I could really participate and be an active member in. and I can enjoy life, and live my life rather than being restricted. I'm very pleased and pray that we continue to have that same service. I don't want to see MARTA be privatized or taken out of the auspices of being a public service, because the public has a very different interest than what private organizations have. We don't want to lose this opportunity to enjoy our life and have our life restricted. The public best knows what their needs are. When you're talking about a private entity, it's just what it is. It's personal, and it's not public. We don't want that to happen. I would really just be very, very, very sad and really have some strong anxieties about losing any of those life activities and functions and involvements that I just mentioned to you.
How many times a week would you say that you use it?
I'll tell you one thing. If I didn't have some certain restrictions financially, I would be on MARTA every day, because I love life and I love getting around and doing things and being involved, and I am involved. So I would love to be able to use it every day, and if it stays affordable, that's one thing, because I just don't have certain days that I want to live my life. I want to live my life every day. So for me, my life is an involvement every day with some aspect of, living a full, quality life.
From what I understand, this contract that MV and MARTA have gives MV the option of raising the fare as much as double. How would that affect you?
Oh, that would affect me tremendously. Because again, as I mentioned, I'm on a fixed income, so I have to use whatever finances I have in other areas, and that would really restrict my being able to get out to be involved in the many things that I'm involved in. I wouldn't be able to get to my medical appointments. I wouldn't be able to get to my religious services. And as an active member who have to eat, I have to go shopping, for my food, to sustain my life on. Then all the other community activities that I'm a part of, community builders, the Clausen Interfaith Group, and mothers, the Voice of Mothers, and many other activities that really add quality to my life. I would miss out on that if the fares were raised.
Did you move to Atlanta partly or mostly because of MARTA?
Well, when I found out that there was a transportation system here, that was very inviting to me, because at first when I moved here, I had my own van. And when that van went up on me, wow. I mean, I was in a near state of devastation, because I wondered how my children I would be able to get around. Now, my son invited me to try going on the fixed route. I'll never forget, it was a cold day. And I had some problems with my upper respiratory system, because I was out there in the public, standing at a bus stop. He was taking me to Lenox Mall. I'll never forget, I'd never gone to Lenox Mall. I'd heard about it. And then going on a train, that area where you transfer at 5 Points was very chilly. And I ended up having an upper respiratory condition, being exposed to the cold weather like that. Whereas with mobility, with the curbside door-to-door service, I don't have to have those challenges with my health. And right now, it's a factor for me. You have no idea of how grateful I am that I don't have to stand in the rain, cold weather, the blistering heat of the sun, or stormy weather, or any of those kind of conditions that would absolutely prohibit me and would absolutely just limit my being able to live my life as fully as I would like to live it. So when I found out that Atlanta had this mobility service, particularly when my van went down on me, which made me aware of it, I was so elated that I wouldn't be stuck in the house and not be and have limitations on living a full quality life.
One of the other things that we're concerned with, if MARTA is successful sending the service to MV, being a for-profit business, there's the fear that, just to give you an idea, let's say they send a van out and they want the van to pick up 4 people per hour, 4 stops in an hour. MV might say, let's make it 6, because we need to make a profit.
Oh my
You
goodness.
know what I'm saying? So,
I understand.
what do you think would happen to your service if they picked up more people per hour? You might have to wait longer.
Well, one of the main fears of that would be that I wouldn't get to where I need to go on time. And being punctual is a great need for me because of the kind of involvement that I have in the community. So it's very important that I'm not delayed when it comes to getting to the places that I'm scheduled to go. That would be quite a negative if you would ask me, because somebody is going to be delayed when you pack that many people into an hourly transportation service. Your pickups and then your drop-offs, can create a real anxiety, and frustration, with regard to being on time. Right now, if you are late for your medical appointments, you have to pay an extra $25 if you are late. And then if people are inviting you to come in and be involved on programs and you're late and you're not dependable, it's going to affect, your being called on to participate in activities. And I wouldn't want that, a record of, being tardy. And so, no, don't call on Sister Betty because she's always late and she's not going to be, participate in a timely manner in which we would need her. I wouldn't want that reputation. That really disturbs me.
This move by MARTA to contract out to MV, how did you find out about it? Were you contacted and told by MARTA?
Absolutely not. And I'm quite disturbed with by the fact that we have absolutely no communication with the MARTA board members at all. It's zero. Had it not been for some of the good employees inside of MARTA and Mr. Stanley and my friend Paul, who have kept me informed and involved, I would not know anything about. I don't get a newsletter. There's nothing on the internet. And it was through these beautiful, concerned young men that I was able to get involved with attending the board meetings. And then when I went to the board meetings, I was shocked to find out that the people on the board had no sensitivities. I didn't see anybody who had a disability, and they couldn't speak out of an experience of being a person with a disability who rides, the MARTA service, the mobility service, and I had no idea of who represented me, who was the commissioner who represented DeKalb County. I've never seen him, her, or him. Nobody's ever talked to me, and I'm a very active person in the community, but nobody's come to me about my ideas and suggestions. When I looked at the list and made some phone calls on an occasion to express my concern to the commissioners, what I found out is that most of them were corporate people. They didn't use the service, nor were their family members of theirs who used the service. They did not communicate with their constituents, so how in the heck are they representing me? Because I don't have a voice with them. So I was very disturbed about that. So at that point in time, I began to attend the board meetings on a regular basis, and I heard nothing coming from the board to show any sensitivity or any awareness with regard to the community who rides and use that service. And I was there, I know, for about 7 or 8 straight months in a row attending their monthly meetings, and I saw no change with all of the excellent personal experiences that was offered to the board to not outsource the service It was as if we were talking to a stone wall, or they just listened just to say, oh, well, they were there. But in terms of making any real changes and working with us so that we could together come up with a way that the service could be improved from inside, nothing was happening. Nothing was happening.
What do you think, Stanley? You got any other questions? That covers it all pretty much, don't it?
I'm glad you changed the tape.
Yeah. What do we got? 15 minutes.